And now it's my pleasure to transition us to our special spiritual guest interview. So we're thrilled to welcome Kathleen Kastner, author of the Karma Cats Children book series. I now have one of them, including Karma Cats to the Rescue, Karma Cats to the Farm, and Karma Cats Kitten Adventure. Kathleen also helps rescue cats and find their forever homes and is a volunteer at the Rancho Coastal Humane Society in Encinitas, California. A beloved yoga teacher for over 25 years and a passionate vegan for 23 years, you can find Kathleen cooking up her favorite recipes on Vegan Vitality, her popular YouTube show. Spiritually, Kathleen finds multiple belonging in both Christian and Kriya Yoga communities. And also, folks, our beloved Victoria Moran is en route today back from teaching. So it's my pleasure to welcome the Reverend Dina Ann Miani Lauman, founder of the Wellbeing, a Christian vegan community. Dina is also a vegan lifestyle coach and educator, and an animal chaplain. So Phil, if you'll bring Dina and Kathleen up, they'll take it from here.
What a blessed time and blessed ability to be here together. So I want to have as much time as we can with Kathleen. So let's just settle in, get relaxed, take a breath. Those breaths are so helpful. Bring yourself to the presence as we enter into this magical conversation with Kathleen. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you. Thank you to
so
Victoria for inviting me.
yeah, me too. I appreciate it. So let's just start from the beginning, like from your background, like where are you from? And I think you grew up in Kansas. And what is your background? Growing up?
Sure. So I was raised in Salina, Kansas, and I was raised in an Episcopal church. And I was very blessed that I always had a positive experience. My parents never talked about it. They didn't talk about God. They didn't talk about Jesus. So I didn't have any like negative connotations attached to going to church. I loved going to church. I would look up at the cross, and for me, I just always felt love. And I always loved animals. My mom says now you were born vegan. So I don't know. I always loved Jesus and God. But again, like nobody talked about it. It was like sex. I don't know what happened. It just was something that, so I feel like it was a blessing. And also I wish there would have been more because I feel like I would have maybe relied on God even sooner in my life. But my dad carried the cross, and then my dad, interestingly enough, actually passed unexpectedly on Easter. So I always thought that was kind of a special thing that he would pass on Easter, even though it was very sudden. But I always thought, oh, that's kind of beautiful. He passed on the resurrection. So, and then I went to KU, went to the University of Kansas, and as I've talked with Victoria on her podcast, I moved to San Diego out of after Kansas, and my first job was with Deepak Chopra, being his personal trainer. And that introduced me to my whole world of, I'd never heard the word, probably consciousness. I was very unconscious at the time. And I got into yoga and meditation, big time meditation. And that changed my life, which eventually led me to the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi and founded Self-Realization Fellowship. And so I am a member of SRF, and that's here in Encinitas. One of his ashrams is here. Yogananda actually died at 59 in 1952. So his organization is right now, it's around 100 years old, and it's international. And the great thing about SRF is the Church of all religions. So everybody's welcome. But it's very, people don't really notice about Yogananda. In fact, I have a lot of show and tell, if that's okay. Someone just gave me this from our
Oh,
temple. I know it's Jesus. So Yogananda loved Jesus. He actually wore a cross, and he mainly talked and wrote about Jesus, and also some with the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna. So we have. I just wanted to show everybody in case you've never been to an SRF service. This is what would be on our altar, and it is very church-like. I took a friend who's Jewish, and she was like, "Oh, that was like going to church." And I was like, "Yeah." So we always meditate and chant. We always have a lesson from one of our monks or nuns. There are nuns and monks in our order. So Jesus and Krishna are there. And then this is Yogananda, of course, his teacher, Sri Yukteswar. So if you read Autobiography of a Yogi, which is fascinating, you will learn who all these amazing, we call them the SRF gurus are. This is Lahiri Mahashai, who was actually Yogananda's parents' teacher. And he even prophesied when Yogananda was a baby that this child is going to go on to bring great things to the world. Makes me a little sad in a good way. And then this is Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai's teacher, who is actually like the eternal, meaning he can come into his body and leave his body, where everybody else has truly, sorry, left the body in general, but he can enter his body, which is, I know, a lot to grasp. But if you read Autobiography of a Yogi, you'll learn more about Babaji. So these are the SRF gurus, and that's kind of my whole story. So I still am Christian in my heart, and I say I'm a Christian yogi because I taught yoga for so long, and it was very important for me, like what you all are doing, to make sure everybody felt welcome.
So many people seem like in the world try to separate out the Christians and the world religions. And this is so beautiful to see that picture of Yogananda hugging Jesus is so
Yeah.
beautiful. And all of the ways, like in the middle, we're all, love is in the middle, so where we all meet, So that's how do you do that, because it is a little, because of that, what we're used to seeing is more of the separation. This is completely opposite. It's beautiful. So how do you juxtapose your Christian identity with your yoga practice and your Yogananda and work and devotion in those ways? So how do they all fit
Well,
together?
I feel like Jesus actually brought me Yogananda. I felt like it just all blended together because meditation, yoga changed my life, but meditation really changed my life. So I had already been meditating I met a wonderful Presbyterian minister at an ashram in California who gave me a book by Thich Nhat Hanh called Be Still and Know, from Psalm 46:10, Be still and know I am God, and by Thich Nhat Hanh, and she sent it to me. This is 30 years ago. She sent it to me in Kansas City, and because I was wanting to learn to meditate, and I was asking her what she thought the best way to know God was, because my first yoga teacher said, it was so profound, but she said her greatest goal in life was to know God. And I was like 25. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, that's amazing. So a few years later, when I went to this ashram, I met this very hip Presbyterian minister it's from San Fran. And I said, what do you think's the best way, most effective way maybe to know God? And I listed off all these things. And she said, hands down, meditation. And that's really what Yogananda teaches too, is to get to know God better by spending more time in the silence. So she sent me this wonderful book called Be Still and Know from Thich Nhat Hanh, who is my favorite vegan spiritual leader, maybe the only one I can think of, really. I wish there were a lot more. God bless him. And so it was just basically comparing the similarities of Christianity and Buddhism. And I have a different book from him right here called Living Buddha, Living Christ, which is also one of my favorites, which
Mhm.
is an elaboration basically of that little book that she sent me. So I just felt like God, the universe was dropping little breadcrumbs into my naive Kansas mind. I got really blessed that I would meet Deepak and then get introduced to Yogananda. And so it's just always just worked for me. And actually, just recently, I'm in my mid 50s. I have really started just studying the Bible for my first time and mainly studying scriptures on healing. And I didn't realize how many healing verses there are, and using, just like we would in any affirmation, the power of our words to help improve our health. I have more show and tell. I had read this book by Joel Osteen's mom called Healed of Cancer by Dodie Osteen, who's just a little firecracker. She's like 91 now, but she got diagnosed with terminal cancer, liver cancer, like stage 3, 4 liver cancer 44 years ago. And her husband was a pastor, and they politely thanked the doctors and left and really never went back, which is miraculous that people would have that much faith in God and Jesus instead of the medical community. So I was like, wow, this is a woman. I want to know more about her. So I read this book, and she's just amazing. She's so kind. Talk about kind. And all the verses are in this book that she said over her body and her life every day, because she said she was like 80 pounds and jaundice, and it didn't happen instantaneous. In fact, it took a year till she started noticing. But anyway, she did heal herself, and 44 years later, she's 90.
Mm.
And one thing she did that also really inspired me, she didn't sit around, she wouldn't feel sorry for herself. She wouldn't lay in bed, and she would like ask her kids to help her move something, like, Mom, you're fine. You've got it. And she would dress up every day and go to other people's homes and pray for them. Sorry, that really inspired me, because I thought, she's still being of service, and they've quote unquote said you're terminally ill, and you have just like a month or two to live. So her story has really kept me going. I didn't have a health, I had an injury that was causing me a lot of pain. So, and I, like everybody, saw every practitioner I could think of, east, west, thousands of dollars. So I've kind of just resorted to following Dodi's method of, the
Mhm.
saying, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And Florence Scovel Shinn really taught that. The Christian metaphysician that was in New York, Victoria also knows Florence, of Florence's work. So I was like, I'm going to apply these verses to my life and my health. And the thing that really stood out to me about Jody is she literally had unwavering faith, like 100%. The promises God promised in the Bible, she believed to her core. And so that's just what I've been doing right now, and I really think it's helping me. So I just like to tell people about Dodi's book if they're interested. It's a small, easy read, and so that's really been my first real introduction to the Bible. I didn't really study the Bible growing up, so she's really helped me a lot. And Joel Osteen, her son.
What I'm hearing from you too is that you have a relationship with the divine, with Creator, with God, like, and you listen. It's like a back
Oh,
and forth, and you're
yes.
doing it when, it's something beautiful. So you make those steps, and it allows God to come and do the next thing for you, or introduce you to, and no, Deepak Chopra. That's so just it's a beautiful,
Dr.
beautiful
Chopra.
path.
Yeah, he was my first. I'm sure God wishes I would listen a little better.
Yeah, I know. No one's perfect. Sometimes it takes a while. Like
Hello.
God's got to go
Like
back
how
and
many?
forth. Well, I want to know too. I want to bring in your animal
Yeah.
activism, rights, your love for animals, and veganism, and how does all this just like come together? How does everything impact your animal advocacy and love and veganism?
Everything. Any chance I can, I really try to weave the animals in. I did have a yoga studio for a long time in Kansas City, Missouri. So we would have vegan potlucks. We would show films. We asked our teacher training to go vegan. Um, PETA gave us free startup kits. I got a few negative. I got a negative review once online, but it was okay. The majority of it, and I know not a lot of people, but people have stayed vegan that even took from me and my husband. My husband was miraculously vegan when I met him 18 years ago. So and we had a vegan wedding in Santa Monica, and I'm from Kansas and he's from Wisconsin. So we had like the beef dairy states, and we
Mhm.
had Real Food Daily cater it. So that was really special to us. So I'm always trying to introduce it. And even with like churches and things, I know it's really easy to get upset. And I've had many
Mhm.
moments of getting upset with spiritual institutions in general, not just Christian. And so one thing I've tried to do, first of all, I think food is probably one of the best ways to help people
Yeah,
go vegan. I know I would rather it be an animal
sure.
film, and of course those documentaries change hearts and minds, like, and Williams is going to do it even more so. But I do think bringing an amazing dish to a potluck that's not necessarily a vegan potluck, and I just think that's a great way. I took a DVD of a film called Eating Mercifully, that the Humane Society of the United States put out. It's on YouTube now and it's free. And I took it to a church here, an Episcopal church here in Del Mar, that was having a barbecue, and I was very upset, and because they would do the St. Francis pet blessing. Then we're gonna have a barbecue, not the same day. But I was on their newsletter, so I didn't have the best results with them, but I felt like I at least tried to plant a seed. I'm actually on, and then recently, that was several years ago. Recently, two churches here, I'm on their newsletters, were having Bible study and barbecue. So I know it's heartbreaking, infuriating. So I wrote one and I tried to be as polite and kind as I could and said that it really bothered me that they were combining these two things. I sent them a link to Eating Mercifully. I would love to talk to somebody, and they tried to be nice, but they said they would pass it on to the person in charge who I didn't hear from, so I can follow up. So I just try to plant little seeds without I do animal rights, and I think there's a time and place for it, but I with the church and stuff, because I wasn't born vegan and I did eat animals and I did use products that were tested on animals. I was telling Dean I have a term I call innocently unaware. I always loved animals. I didn't realize that what I was, doing. And so I feel like that's the same way with a lot of people, even though we're at a time in history where animal cruelty is revealed more than ever before. Like it's, you can easily, but I do still feel like there is this gap between consciousness that they just haven't, it hasn't clicked yet, just like it hadn't clicked for me before I went vegan. So, because this is about compassion, I know it's really frustrating to be upset with our family members, our friends, whatever spiritual institution we might be affiliated with. SRF is actually supposed to be vegetarian, and the nuns and monks are, but most of our members are not. So I went and talked to our lead monk. I gave him a copy of the China study because he used to be a physics professor. And I thought, well, I'll talk to him about ahimsa because he's up there on Sundays. He talks about the eight limbs on ahimsa. And I'm also going to weave in some science by giving him a copy of the China study. So, and it turned out another member from an Arizona temple had given him a copy of the China study. So, because we have like ice cream socials and, my husband will go to a volunteer Christmas party for the men and it'll be ice cream and pizza, all dairy. We're treating dairy like a vegetable. It was making me so upset. So I went to our lead minister and he was super cool. And it was before COVID and we do retreats and he's like, let's do the next treat vegan and you can help cook. So anyways, they stopped doing retreats and they're just starting to rev them up again. So I guess I just try to plant seeds, kindly and just thinking that they may truly not understand where we're at with the animals.
Yeah. Living what the compassion that you want to embrace, that you embrace in your faith with others. That's, sometimes it's hard though to do.
I'm trying. And that doesn't mean behind the scenes I'm not cussing a little bit. My
I hear
husband's like,
you.
my husband will yell, stop watching your animal porn, meaning it's like
Yeah.
doom and gloom, porn. That's what he calls it. And I'm like, because he'll hear me very upset in here. And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I have to, and I do sign petitions like everybody and try to call and call again and show up in person. So I do try to do things. But when it comes to animals and spirituality, I think it helps if we can just try to plant seeds. Again, a book, a
Yeah.
recipe, a vegan dish, um, the movies, the documentaries, just, or you just do your own thing with you guys.
hmm Absolutely. To have a place here to come is so wonderful to have the Compassion Consortium to be able to be with like-minded people and hearted people too. So, well, I'm telling you, we could talk for, I think you could have like a whole like webinar retreat. So I would love to hear more about what you're doing. But we have to they limited our time. So I just wanted to see if there was something else you wanted to say, just to tap everything up. I'm gonna put the
I
frog.
just wanted to thank everybody. I mean, I love knowing that there's this many people who care. It's
Mhm.
just it makes me so happy. And there is a saying in animal rights that we're on the right side of history. And the
Yeah.
first time I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, and so it's so great. I just want to say like the world is changing it is going to change. And I pray I live long enough to see it. I feel like I am going to. And so I just want to thank everybody for
Yes, thank
caring
you.
about the precious animals who deserve all, our voice, and to really be active, to take
Mhm.
action too. And I do pray every day. I have this whole list of things, and I do pray for the Holy Spirit to enter the minds and hearts of all those harming animals and eating them, to
Mhm.
awaken to the light and divinity within all beings.
Yes, amen to that. It's been such a gift to talk to you today. What a blessing, and thank you so much, Kathleen. Till
Thank
next,
you for
to be
listening. I know I
continued.
have a lot to say, so thanks
Yeah, well, you
everybody.
do. But I'm thinking if you have more than just a webinar, you have like a whole course. So I mean, there's so much there in your books and the ways that you're creative, planting those gentle seeds.
Thank you. Yeah, and I wanted to say I do write my Karma Cats book because I feel like children, of course, are born empathetic. This one's about
Mhm.
Penny the pig who escapes from a factory farm and ends up in a farm sanctuary. So that was my whole reason I started with children. I just wanted to even encourage it more.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. They're the most open audience, I think. It's
Yes.
natural to them. So yeah.
Yeah, and they're so precious when I do school visits. So we have a lot of little Karma Cats heroes on the rise for the animals.
Be fun for adults. I want to read them too. So new
Thank
books.
you.
Well, thank you again so much. And
Thank you, everybody. I'm so grateful.
to be continued.